Welcome to the Porter & Company Black Label Podcast, your home for provocative insights that lead to lasting wealth. And here are your hosts, Porter Stansberry and Aaron Brabham.
Let's go.
Let's get ready to rumble.
This is going to be my favorite podcast we've ever done.
Yeah, actually, you requested this guest on the last podcast, and Country Club Guy went and made it happen.
Well, this guy is one of my favorite human beings in the whole world. He's the pro golfer, Kevin Kisner. He's a great golfer. He's, come in second the British Open. He's won the Dell Match Play.
He's won four times.
He's
a two-time President's Cup player.
Team member, yep.
2017 and 2022.
And we have an announcement to make about his next President's Cup appearance.
Yes.
But that'll be later in the show.
Yes, that'll be later in the show. He also does have a foundation that him and his wife Brittany set up where they're assisting kids in Aiken, South Carolina, where he's from. And what I like about it is he's creating a positive environment for these kids. So he's giving them some morals, values, teaching them sports, teaching them.
I don't like to ever talk about my own philanthropy,
Yeah.
my own charity, because it ruins my image as a very tough businessman. But one of us is a very major donor to the Kisner charity.
Oh, okay. Well, it's not me, so.
I helped Kevin build a new hospital down in Aiken.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. No, I think this guy is salt of the earth, and
he's great.
He's one of the most beloved. He's the biggest trash talker.
It's hard to get him to
far.
come on the computer.
Yeah.
But we did it.
Yeah, we'll get into that. So we'll get into that shortly, Porter. Okay, Porter. Remember the last show we did, we talked about distressed debt and distressed income with Marty Fritzen.
Yes.
And I kind of felt like we didn't have any listeners for a while because I wasn't getting much feedback. So some of the people I've written in, they're like, bring the gin and tonics back, you'll get the feedback. Which, who knows, maybe we'll throw a wild card out there one day, but you're Mr. Chairman, we can't do that right now.
Oof.
So, Porter, we probably received, 100 pieces of email from the last show.
Oh, great. Well, because I think you bribed them.
Well, I did. I gave away a full issue of Marty Fritzen's
You guys,
Distressed Income.
You old T-Rexers with
Yep.
your short arms.
Yep.
Oh, I can't reach my wallet.
Yeah, well,
I can't spend, heaven forbid, I spend $1,000 so I have the information that I need to make a $100,000 investment. Perfectly rational.
And this goes back to what you always say, which is, and we even said it during the last one, we talked about the capital efficient stocks, and this is the only thing you should buy. And then you go, but forget all that. Just throw all those out the window. Just go buy corporate bonds and buy them from people that know what they're doing, and you'll kill it. You've done it time and time again. You started.
I say all the time, most people do not have the emotional wherewithal and reserve necessary to hold common stocks for the long term. So you're going to end up buying them at the top and selling them at the bottom because your financial decisions are being driven by emotion instead of by reason. And that's just how most human beings are wired. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you recognize that about yourself, the next step is stop buying stocks and then only buy corporate bonds because you get paid the coupon. You don't have to depend on the board of directors to give you a dividend. And, of course, they pay off principal in full at par when they mature. So if you go buy a bond that's trading at 75 cents on the dollar, you're going to get the capital gain and you're going to get the income for the next 3 or 4 years, no matter what happens. And for most people, they actually need that certainty. Most people greatly exaggerate their own risk tolerance. They tell people, oh, yeah, I can go buy this risky Tellurian. I can go buy a startup LNG company on the Gulf Coast, and I'll be fine, even if the stock goes from $3 to 30 cents, which it has. Most people can't do that, and so most people don't earn the returns that are possible from taking those kinds of risks. And that's okay, because you can still make 15 to 20% a year in corporate bonds if you're just smart enough to subscribe to Marty Fritzen.
Yeah, another thing that I like about the bond, and I know this is a big hurdle, it's a 9-digit QSIP, and you have to call the broker at Schwab or whatever, and it's actually a very easy process, but you kind of hit the nail on the head. If you have to do that, you're not going to call back out of emotion. You're going to let it ride, right? So if Marty hasn't changed his mind, you can't I can't go and log in a Schwab one night when I drink too much wine and say, I hate this bond now. I found this other thing. No, that money's tied up in a very good way, by the way.
Most private equity deals are terrible.
Yes.
I do not recommend that people invest in private equity deals. When your neighbor is starting a restaurant, don't have dinner at his house.
No, do not do that.
Don't do that. But the one thing that's good about a private business as opposed to a publicly traded company is that there's no liquidity.
Right.
And so if you do what I do, which is start your own companies, you're in. You can't get out. You can't decide you don't want to be in the publishing business anymore just because there's a stock market crash. There's no exit. There's only through.
Got to figure it out.
And that duration ends up becoming extremely important to people's investing in ways that they don't anticipate when they make the investment to start with.
Yeah, I think that's great. And that's actually a perfect lead in. So a lot of our listeners out there, you guys know the trials and tribulations that Porter had gone through. And the reason why he ended up starting Porter and Company was out of circumstances that were out of your control, things you agreed to that other people did not honor whatsoever. I happened to run into one over the weekend who's still delusional. We're not going to go into that story. But one thing over 25 years, Porter, is you learned a lot about what not to do. And if you had the opportunity to do it over, we would do those things at Porter and Company. And despite all of the doubters, the haters, saying that you can't sell front-end research reports for a bundle for $199. Great research reports. You can't have a $1,000 newsletter. You can't, et cetera, et cetera. We've been able to defy all those. You can't not spam your list, right, with a bunch of junk offers.
Which we don't do.
Because it ruins the credibility, right? You have the four Porter P's that you've come up with. And these principles have really set us apart in the industry. So I have an email, one of the ones that I want to read to you.
Oh, wow.
Because
this isn't a mean tweet?
No, this isn't a mean tweet.
We should do mean tweets,
but
too,
this is going to be this is
more fun.
Actually, I'll do that.
But
this is going to be like I think a little bit I'm going to challenge you because our listeners and our readers don't get the behind the scenes baseball insider.
Well, this one isn't addressed to Porker Scamsberry.
No, this is not the Porker Scamsberry.
This is not a Porker Scamsberry email?
No, this is actually Martin. He's a Winter Park Wildcat because we talked about that. He's class of 1977.
Oh, wow.
You're class of 91. I'm class of 92.
We grew up in a little town in Central Florida called Winter Park. It's a lovely little town. And many, many, many moons ago, it was a railroad town. It was kind of like a winter resort. And there's some really fancy places and brick streets and beautiful oak trees and lakes. And then there was where we lived.
Yeah. Yeah, basically.
Which is none of those things. But but living around really rich people made us very ambitious.
Yeah, for sure.
And so that's...
And if you have buddies that have, houses on the lakes and you're going water skiing with them and you're doing things that your parents didn't do for you, you're like, I want to do that one day.
Yeah,
I want to
exactly.
have that.
It's the old, remember the Wall Street Journal ad? The
Yeah.
rich dad, the poor dad?
Yep.
The rich dad read the Wall Street Journal, the
Yep.
poor dad didn't.
Yep.
That's kind of like us.
It was basically like that. Okay, so here's what Martin says. Thanks for another great show. I seriously really look forward to watching these podcast shows each month. Love the candid approach and the information. The usual fine quality I've grown accustomed to from Porter and Company. Of course, being a Stansberry Alliance member as well for several years, I'm sort of used to great information on a daily basis from your organization. I'm looking much deeper into the distressed bond investing you've been talking about for the past few years. Since I'm a Partner Pass member of Porter & Company, no need to send the Marty Fritzen one. I'm making my way through it. I appreciate that. I've also been investing in Stansberry's credit opportunities, which is Mike DiBiase.
That's my second distressed debt product. My first one was I started in the crash of 2008. It was called True Income. With Mike Williams, we did very well there. I think the average annual returns were over 30% on that product. And then we started Credit Opportunities in 2015. As far as I know, that's done very, very well. Mm-hmm. And I know the analyst there, of course, I hired him, and he's brilliant.
Mike's great. Yeah. Mike's fantastic.
Mike
and he says
good, yeah.
Mike DiBiase is great. Mm-hmm. Either way, bonds are part of my portfolio. I look forward to learning more. He says, okay, here's where we start to get into the kicker, and then I'm going to
There's always a but.
Challenge you. No, there's no but, actually.
No but.
But I'm going to challenge you because I know we've talked about this for a while, and you're trying, as Mr. Chairman, you're trying to do things a little bit differently, and you're really getting into our subscribers' psychology and trying to make things simpler. So, Porter, this is what Martin says. He's the best of the best. And my point of reading this is the conversations we've been having over the past couple of months with your psychology of you have a lot of empathy for the subscriber. I think that is the biggest thing that we have at Porter & Company that you wanted to do. And the reason why I jumped at the opportunity to become marketing director was to treat the customer just like we'd want to be treated.
It's pretty simple.
It's pretty simple.
And by the way, if the customer is paying you $1,000 a year for your research, why can't you treat them like gold?
Exactly. Don't bombard them with a bunch of spam. Don't do a bunch of stupid things. Don't overpromise and cheat them and all that stuff.
And also write great stories and do great research.
Exactly. So he says, I'm also a Tradesmith Platinum, Altimetry Lifetime, Bonner Private Research Lifetime, and Chaikin Analytics subscriber. I laughed when I figured out they're all owned by MarketWise. Maybe consider a super MarketWise subscription to everything offer, LOL. Anyways, big shout out to all these analysts and editors across the spectrum. I might have gotten lucky, but every membership subscription paid for itself in a matter of months or less than a year. Hence, I'm really happy camper and can't say enough great things about your research.
Well, that's a very good idea.
That's fantastic. So, but one of the things that we've been kind of talking about is, and I don't know if you want to share this, but kind of having each of these franchises, the best of the best, kind of really defining a little bit more for the subscriber of what we stand for.
Well, we've done a bunch of things that are in line with what this customer has noticed. The most important one is I started something new at MarketWise called the MarketWise Fellowship. And that idea is for people who have a significant amount of money that they're managing, let MarketWise be your family office. And so it's kind of like the Alliance. There's a membership fee, and then after that, there's an annual due, but it's not very much. And you get everything that MarketWise does if you want it. And we say, up to 5 things. But that's for these customers, they generally have plenty of they have enough subscription material. They have enough research.
Right.
What they don't have is the ability to organize it, to use it. And they also are looking for community.
That's right.
And so what the fellowship is really about is going to be traveling together, having special events together, having VIP access to stuff, like a round of golf with Kevin Kisner or something like that, right? So for the folks out there who really want a better relationship with all of these analysts and with the world of MarketWise, we're going to be able to bring that to you.
Yeah, I think that's great. And by the way, I had I'm not trying to make a soft pitch or anything like that for this, but if you do want information, send us an email and I'll send you a link and you can talk to somebody. But one of the things that I like that in the interview you had with Jared Kelly was, especially during COVID, you talked about the need for community, right?
Yeah,
and
really
as you get older as well, we talk about, we just got back from my 50th birthday trip to Ireland. And we're all like-minded, right? Just 4 of us, but we all love the newsletter industry. We love golf. We love great wine. We love great food. And when I go back to Medellin, I don't have that, right? I got a few people, but they can't afford what I can afford. And same thing with you. And this is a cool travel thing.
That's why even though you swore to me when you left you would never come back, but Baltimore County is a good community to be a part of. There's lots of good golf here. There's lots of good people here, lots of pretty things.
And lots of great restaurants.
So
the country is, the county is different from the city.
Of course, right. So anyways, it's a good lifestyle here. But I'll tell you something that I really dream of doing, and this is just a dream right now, but I believe we can make it happen. One of the reasons why I started the Atlas 400 and the reason why I'm now launching the MarketWise Fellowship is in every single thing that we write about and in everything that I've wanted to do as an entrepreneur, there is someone in my subscriber file who has either already done it or who knows way more about it than I ever will. And so there's a lot to be gained by joining together and having this network that you can be a part of, you can plug into instantly. So if you join with a group of 100 like-minded people who are all managing, $5 to $500 million, you all have an interest in great investments. You all are going to have an interest in travel. Some of you are going to have a passion for sports or hunting or things like that. And you're going to have lots of interesting things that you're doing. So here's the thing I want to do the most. I want to build a village at the villages in Florida. Because Bill Bonner did a second home community in Nicaragua, which is very nice. Doug Casey did a second home community in Cafayate in Argentina, which is very nice. But most people don't want to spend their retirements in Nicaragua or Argentina. A lot of people want to spend their retirements in Florida. There's a tax advantage, and there's a whole community of people who are 50 to 80 years old that play golf and that invest.
And year-round good weather.
Year-round decent weather. I don't want to live in the summer. But anyways, I want to build a community and the villages, and like all the other communities, we want to have a golf course. We want to have a little central downtown, and this is going to be what just makes ours unique. I want to have a trading floor.
Oh.
I want to have a room where you can go to and have your Bloomberg and have your Stansberry terminal and sit there and trade your options if you want to. Hopefully selling them, studying your distressed debts, passing around the newsletters, and everybody talking and helping each other. Because I'll tell you something. If it was normal in your community to sell options every month, if it was normal in your community to buy distressed debt, if it was normal in your community to position size, to understand the correlations of your portfolio, you would do it.
That's right.
Because human beings are very social creatures, and you're going to do what everybody else is doing around you. And so I want to create a village for people who are active investors. And I think it would be fun to live there and be a part of it.
Yeah, I think that would be cool. And like you said, what do you want to do when you retire? Travel, play some golf, drink some great wine, and read financial newsletters.
Yeah, I don't want to retire.
Nah, we're having a good time.
I'm not having a good time right now. I'm killing myself right now. But I'm killing myself now so that hopefully in 5 years I can retire again. And when I say retire, I mean I just want to. This is why I built this barn. That's why we're here. This is all I want to do. I want to find great investment stories and write them to my subscribers.
Let's give our listeners something else that I think is going to be really cool. You know what they always say? More podcast episodes. Well, you've stumbled across something recently that you've fallen in love with, the Acquired podcast.
Oh, it's great. Yeah, it really is great.
So now you want to put your own spin on it, and you're recording something Friday. I'm very excited for, and I think you are too.
Yeah, I'm very excited about this guy. So you know how much I love great businesses. And for me, when you find what makes a business tick, the secret thing inside it that makes it work better than the competitors. And what I love about the Acquired podcast is they do these deep dives into individual businesses, and they figure out what makes that business tick, what makes it special. And I love that. I love listening to it. So I'm gonna start doing my own version of that with a good analyst, Whitney Tilson. And he and I have done deep dives into hundreds of companies over the past 30 years. And we're going to be taking our very favorite businesses, our very favorites, and doing every month a deep dive into them to explain everything about them. So these are companies that you should buy and hold forever, and we're going to explain why.
No, that's fantastic. And
by the way, we need a name for it.
Yeah, you have a tentative name, but I'm not sure you're super pumped about it.
It's Investable,
right?
Is the name, but there might already be one called that.
There might be.
And the other thing is, it sounds too much like the Lunchables thing.
Yeah, it does.
To me.
Well, now that you mentioned that, it doesn't sound awesome.
But what I want is, maybe it's the One Decision podcast. You just need to make one decision about these kind of stocks. I tell you what, when you figure out, like I did way back in 2007, that there was something so special about Hershey that all you had to know the rest of your life to be successful as an investor was just when to buy it. That's the only thing you need to know. Costco, McDonald's.
Recently, when we first launched Porter & Company, you put Domino's on the watch list.
Domino's. There are these businesses that are not just iconic, but have these internal characteristics that make them timeless. And those are really important businesses to understand. And if those businesses are the base of your portfolio, it's really hard to go wrong.
Yeah, and also kind of what we were talking about earlier, once you know the secret sauce or what makes them different from the competitors, you don't want to sell them.
No.
Because you know why they're the best.
Yep. And that, of course, was that was the basis of the app that I built back in 2019. Anyways, the whole idea was, look, I can identify 50 stocks that are like this, that are absolutely, positively only buy stocks, right? You would never sell these. You only buy these. And then all I wanted to know was, okay, well, when do I buy them? And the fun thing is, if there's a really big bear market, like in 2008, they're all for sale. Or like in 2020, of course, I told people at the time, March 23rd, this is the greatest buying opportunity you'll have in your lifetimes. Buy these stocks.
Yes.
So I'm not just looking at this rearward. I recommended Hershey in real time in 2007 and many others, Microsoft, McDonald's, etc. My point is, what you really need is a system that alerts you when these stocks are in buy range. And of course, we did that for you last year with Domino's. We said buy Domino's below $300. And if you're listening to this podcast and you don't know the story of that recommendation, I urge you, go look at a chart of McDonald's. The stock traded below $300 for maybe 12 days and now has rebounded to $550. And what's important is not the short-term performance. What's important is that if you know exactly when the buyers will enter the market for these stocks, you know actually exactly when to buy them. And you can look at Hershey at about 185 today. You can look at Domino's at 300. And of course, it's not the nominal price that matters. It's the price relative to earnings. And just knowing that is an enormous advantage to you as an investor. It makes everything simple.
Yeah, so if anybody is interested and doesn't want us to miss that announcement, they can go to porterspodcast.com and give us their email. We're not going to spam you. We give you great information, and it just kind of keeps you in touch when we have a new podcast out for this or the new show.
Porter's Podcast, register at Porter's Podcast. We will not spam you, and we will send you every time we drop a new issue, whether it's for
That's
Investable
right.
or whether it's for the Black Label Show.
Yep, and the Big Secret on Wall Street also will put you on that every Friday.
And
as
every
well
Friday
to get a lot
we'll
of content.
every Friday we'll send you a good email.
A really good email.
Yep.
That's right.
A good email, full of stories.
Okay, Porter.
Good fun to read.
I remember, God, I don't remember what year you have an elephant memory, but for when you first created the conference circuit, our keynote,
2014.
Who was our first keynote speaker?
Julian Assange.
That's right. And finally yesterday, he has a plea deal from the United States. He's on a plane right now. He's just got to go enter this, and it'll essentially free him, even though, of course, he has to plead to espionage or some kind of garbage like that.
No, they charged him with something, and I need to do a little more research on this law because
conspiring to unlawfully obtain and disseminate classified national defense information is what he's charged with.
Okay, so the interesting thing about that is, did he pay for that information? And the answer is no. At least, let me be really clear. I don't have all my facts because this just came out this morning, and I have not done my research. But what is it if you gather classified information? Well, you talk to people.
It's journalist.
This law makes journalism against the law
illegal, right?
Right. And so what I think is there's huge problems with this law because it should not be against the law to gather classified information for the purpose of publishing it. I do believe it should be against the law to pay for it. Because if you are paying for it, now you're conspiring with someone else to break the law.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You're providing an incentive for them to do so. But if they want to be a whistleblower and turn it over to you for free, they should be allowed to.
Yeah, I fully agree with you. And of course,
and if you're gonna prosecute somebody, you prosecute the guy that had the duty to not reveal the information. You don't prosecute the guy who published it.
Totally agree. That's what journalism is. So it's good to see him out. And, 2 or 3 presidents had the opportunity. They didn't do it. So finally, he's going to be a free man, and he deserves it.
I was infuriated this morning. Mike Pence tweeted that.
Oh, let me guess. He wants him back locked up or some garbage like that.
Just nonsense.
Bunch of traitors. Porter, one of our big themes, the AI keystone. We've written about it. I think we were the first ones to kind of come up with the secret of AI, right?
Secret of AI is electricity.
Okay, so Bloomberg just wrote a few days ago an article titled "AI is already wreaking havoc on global power systems."
But it's okay. We're gonna make it all right with solar panels.
Well, yeah, of course, right? And wind farms.
And wind farms. Lots of wind farms.
So, which, by the way, we've been writing about it for a while. They're, of course, are going back to nuclear.
We were in Ireland for a week, and we probably saw 100 windmills everywhere.
Yes.
Did we see any of them moving?
No, not one. And by the way, and the wind was 20 knots.
Yeah, there was one day we were playing golf in 35-mile-an-hour wind. I'm not exaggerating. The wind was blowing the golf carts across the fairways, and and the windmills were standing still.
It's completely. And I asked our driver Tommy. I'm like, "What's up? What's going on?" He goes, "Oh no, they turned them off because they don't want electricity to be too low." I'm like, "Whatever. It's just all a big racket."
I think they weren't spinning because the diesel generators were out of fuel.
So there is a chart that they put up that shows energy usage, and altogether data centers use more electricity than most countries other than 16 countries, including the U.S. and China. So the top 16 cities still have more electricity output than the data centers, but underneath that is AI is using more than all those cities in the world.
So it'd be interesting for us to know how many data centers there are in the United States currently, how many are being built, and what the average electricity demand for each data center is annually. Because then you'd have a really good way of understanding how much power is going to have to be added to the system.
Yeah, because we're in the early innings. We're maybe in the second inning of this thing. So,
and for investors who really care about this, I understand that the ultimate solution is nuclear power. There's no question about that. Okay, I agree. It's going to take a long time to build that out. Not because we couldn't, but because of the regulatory hurdles and all the publicity and the ridiculous negative press around nuclear. And there are some really good modular reactor companies out there. We've recommended the best, one of them. So the way I see it is you've got about a 20-year run rate here of having massive double-digit percentage annual gains to electricity demand. And for that 40-year period, the only viable solution is natural gas. That is going to make a lot of money for people who own assets in the Marcellus. And it's going to make a lot of money for people who own assets in the Permian. And it's going to make a lot of money for people who are going to be able to build the required transmission and all of the pipelines. And I think it's going to be really bad news for the politicians who don't understand the basic physics of energy, like the people who run Boston.
Yeah.
And, I famously have been predicting a big blackout will hit Boston. I still believe that. And, we haven't had a bad winter for a while, so one's coming due.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny, this just triggered my memory, talking about the fellowship and the connections. And you've been writing about horizontal drilling and fracking to shale oil when peak oil was still on the way up, right? When the barrel was over $100 and you said it'll be below $30 and we'll be producing more barrels per day than Saudi Arabia and Russia. And we are. We're nearly 14 million barrels a day. But this just triggered my memory. One of your contacts from one of those trips was Cactus Schroeder.
Sure, of course.
Right? And this is another reason why these trips are important, because you get to meet people that are experts in things that you would never run across.
Well,
and how great has Cactus been for information?
Oh, he's the best.
I mean, I've watched, literally, you just pick up the phone and you say, hey, Cactus, I just read this thing about the Permian Basin. He knows all the buyers.
He knows all the people.
He knows all the people on the ground, which is really amazing.
Yeah, that's great.
Okay, Porter, let's switch gears and let's have a little bit of fun. We know that our listeners may not love talking some sports stuff, but we have a special guest.
Oh, this guy's just
that you sponsored.
No, Kisner is a national treasure.
He is a national treasure.
He's not just a sports guy.
No, not at all. He's a national treasure. So let's bring him on.
Kevin, thanks so much for being here with us, man. It's great to see you. It's been a while. How are you and where are you?
Thanks, Porter, for having me. I'm doing great. I hope you're doing well. I'm in Detroit, Michigan, getting ready for the Rocket Mortgage on the PGA Tour. So getting ready to go out and play a practice round this afternoon.
All right, and how are conditions up there? It's been hotter than hell on the East Coast. Hopefully you guys aren't going to be roasting.
Yeah, it's supposed to be nice this week. It's supposed to thunderstorm here in the next hour or so, and then cool off for the rest of the week. So should be really nice. I've been hiding from the heat in the mountains of North Carolina and Cashers, North Carolina. So I had to drive back for one thing Saturday night. It was 98 degrees at home, and I was like, thank God. That's why I moved to North Carolina in the summer.
That's a good choice. Hey, listen, we know you've embarked on a new part of your career, which is broadcasting, and that's something that we pretend to do at home, basically.
Our audience is just a little smaller than yours.
Quite a bit. So, listen, I'm just kind of curious about how all that went for you. One of the things I've always admired about your golf game is how absolutely ice cold you are on the golf course. I remember asking you a long time ago. You had to make this. You're in a playoff. I think it was at Harbortown. And you had to make this, this tough approach shot from like 175 out. And, if you miss that shot at all, everyone, the whole world's watching, and it's a playoff, and there's a ton of money on the line. And it just seemed like, you're more comfortable than I am with my weekend foursome. And so I asked you, I said, what is going on in your mind? Like, how do you block out all that pressure and all that stress? And you said, I just look at the ball, And I say, don't be a bitch.
That's great.
And you just keep it that simple. So I really wondered, what was the anxiety and the stress like for being in the broadcast booth for hours at a time, and knowing that you had to say everything that was intelligent and knowledgeable, and you couldn't say 37 times in a row,
Right.
and again, all the lights and all the eyes are on you. How do you manage that stress? And is it any different than being on the golf course? Because I don't think you get to look over at your companion in the booth and go, all right, now don't be a bitch.
Well, I appreciate the question. I think I got a super long response to this, and I guess I'd start with when they asked me to do it. I said it was right around Christmas, and our first week was going to be in Maui in January, and I said, Tommy Roy is the executive producer for MEC, is a friend of mine. I said, dude, I don't think I can do it. There's no way right now I can go to New York or wherever and do a class on broadcasting. He goes, oh, no, don't worry about it. I can just go over it with you in 15, 20 minutes on a phone call. And I said, Tommy, you're going to give me an open air mic on TV after a 15-minute phone call and just say, go get it, kids? I said, do you know how much I cuss? And he's like, oh, yeah, I got it. I said, so what happens if I say the F word? He goes, well, that'll be the end of your broadcasting career, not mine. I was like, oh, okay. So I remember he asked me to fly out there and go into the truck where, he controls everything. That's where they're yelling, let's go to this hole, let's go to this shot. And so I sit right next to him in the truck on Thursday during the broadcast. And it is pure effing chaos in there, Porter. I'm talking people yelling, commercial guy saying we got to go commercial, some guy talking about this ad has to get in. And I'm listening on the headset, and I'm like, dude, there's no way. I'll never forget. He asked me to stay for 2 hours. I made it an hour. I walked out, I got in my golf cart, and I called my wife, and I said, I don't think I'm built for this. And she's like, what? I said, if this is anything like what I just experienced, there's no way I can make it. And so I'm driving up to the booth, which is out on the golf course, while I'm talking to her. And I'm like, I got to go. I'm going to go sit in the booth now and listen. And I opened the door to the booth, and it was like a Zen yoga studio. Like, nobody's talking. Everything's quiet. And you just hear Dan Hicks' soothing voice going, okay, now we're going to 16. I was like, whew, all right, I can do this. That last shit I don't want any part of. And so I put a headset on, and it was just like a couple buddies sitting around like we are, BSing on live TV, and you just can't use some language that you like to use.
That's right. Because you've built a wonderful career for yourself on the golf course, but you've also built just a good of a career for yourself in the golf community. I think you have this interesting position where you're almost universally respected and liked by everybody in the golf world. Everywhere I go as one of your sponsors, everybody the first question is, it used to be, hey, Porter, what should I do with my GE stock or whatever. But now it's, hey, tell me what it's like to play golf with Kiz, And it's like, well, I didn't really play golf with him. He saw me struggle, and he was just sitting in the cart. But, I got the question I think that all of the golf fans like me have, and, I've been you wouldn't know this from my game, but I've been a diehard fan of golf since I was 12 years old. And we really want to see the game again. We want everybody to come back to the table. We want everybody to I remember calling you maybe 3 or 4 years ago about some outburst that Brooks Koepka made. And I was like, man, that's just not good for the game. It was when he was razzing Bryson all the time.
Yeah.
And I was like, that's just not good for the game. Like what everybody loves so much about golf is the way that the athletes are gentlemen, and that they shake hands, and that they call their own penalties. And there's a fundamental honor to the game. And that honor is lacking in every other professional league. I mean, the stuff that's going on with the women's basketball right now is just absolutely shameful. Our whole society and culture should be completely against it. That's sportsmanship is something that I know you grew up with and I grew up with, and the PGA Tour is the only place we get to see that demonstrated week in and week out by virtually every single professional that's on the tour. And I just wondered if you had any simple solution for us to move past this schism and this, the needless rivalry and the destruction that all that ego is causing the game itself.
Well, before I answer that, I will tell you last night I watched the end of that Stanley Cup final, and I had never been more impressed with athletes at the end of the game. They just beat the hell out of each other for 7 games, got in fist fights, and they were led out. The Edmonton Oilers lost the 7th game of the Stanley Cup, and they went and stood in line and shook every hand and hugged those players. I thought that was the ultimate. I mean, I hadn't seen that, like you were said, in any other sport in so long. You watch an NBA game and the guy loses and they just run off to their locker room and don't even talk to the other team. I think it's shameful. So I was impressed with the hockey guys last night. I just laid in bed right when I got here and watched the end of it. I thought it was really cool. As far as our sport and what needs to happen.
Sorry, kids, just to interrupt.
Yeah,
I didn't see that, and I don't. I haven't heard of that. What's hockey? Sorry, I was making a joke. Is that did they do that up in Canada?
No, it's only the only, last I remember was the Russia Olympic thing.
Yeah, Kiz, my wife is Canadian, and I just like teasing her about hockey and about calling it Canadian. So that was an inside joke. But yeah, but about the real issue about how we can bring the game back together again and get everybody exhibiting the best qualities of golf.
Yeah, I think we like you said, we have to take our ego caps off at the top levels and come together. And in my opinion, you have to come together and go to a guy like Yasser and say, what do y'all want? Y'all have all the gold. We have the product. Let's make golf great globally. We have to give the rich guy what he wants a little bit, right? He has all the money, and bring him to the table and figure out from a negotiating standpoint how we can get to a common area that makes everybody happy, because the players want to play together. The U.S. Open was great TV, right? You had Bryson DeChambeau, you had Rory McIlroy competing against each other. There was no animosity amongst the two. So I think we're past all the, I'm never talking to the LIV guys again, or I'm never going to go to LIV. Everybody's trying to get poached by LIV every day. And why wouldn't they? They play for $20 million every week. They have no cut. They have 54 players. I mean, you're crazy if you wouldn't want to go play for that type of money, but let's do it together, and let's get the best players doing it together. And I think from the top on both sides, we have to remove our cap and not hold our self-esteem so high that we don't ask the rich guy what he wants.
Well, that sounds like a pretty good answer. I have a feeling you won't do this, but I would love to see somebody with your stature. And again, because I want to be really clear about something, I don't think you realize how beloved you are in the American public and in the golf world. There's something really special about your cool and calm demeanor on the course and your charisma and how friendly you are with everybody. And so I say this with with understanding that that this is probably something you're not going to do, and it probably was nothing you would never do because it's not in your character and it's not the way you get along with people. But I would love to see a player of your stature write some kind of a simple open letter that says, this is the solution. This is what this is exactly what we need to do. This is what's good for the game. And you said to me just now, you got to give the guy with the goal what he wants. But I would love it if there's just been no communication with the public now for so long, and there doesn't seem to be any end in sight. And I wish there was just some more solutions on the table, and I've got one for you because I'm sure everyone wants to know. I'm sure everyone wants to know how Porter Stansberry would bring golf back together. So here's my vision about all this. I love match play. And there's very little match play left in golf. I think there's some at the amateur level, and of course there's the Dell match play tournament.
But it's gone.
They got rid of that.
Oh no.
Yeah, that was Kiz's event.
Yeah.
I think they got rid of it because Scotty beat him in that last one, and nobody wanted it anymore because Kiz was the champ of that thing.
Well, I'm sure the pros don't love the match play because it's a much longer week, and it really exposes all the weaknesses in your game and all that stuff. So what I would love to see is let the PGA Tour be the place where the pros come and compete, and where they have all the legacy and they have the heritage and they have the great courses that we've played at. We love everybody watching, right? And then once you have done something, and I don't know what this would be, but you've won a certain number of times, or you've gotten enough world golf points, or you've won a major, something like that. You become some kind of a known entity. Then you would get invited to play in essentially like the European Champion League, and if you're a soccer fan, right? This is the place where only the really good teams play. And so that would be what is now LIV. And those big exhibition tournaments could happen all over the world, and they would all be match play. And kind of like the way that the PGA Tour has events the same weekends as the majors, but nobody, nobody knows
they're happening.
Right, it's the bottom half of the tour. Right, so you do the same thing. So when it's not a signature weekend, if you're a live player, you've qualified to be a live player, you get invited to go to this match play thing, and of course, there's big money on the line. So it's kind of like it's this intermediate step between the PGA Tour and what I still call the Senior Tour. They call it the Champions Tour now, but you know what I mean.
Right.
And it's for the golfers who everybody loves and who are really talented, but may not be able to compete day to day with guys who are 26 years old and booming the ball out 340.
Right. Well, in my opinion, it's a great idea because we're going to have to lower the age on the Champions Tour at some point, because as you watch the history of the tour, the average age when I first got out here was between 33 and 35, and that was what people called your prime. And in the last 3 years, that's changed to 26, 28. So if that trend continues, and you guys in your business like to watch trends as well as we do, what is the future going to hold for the 40-year-old that's won 5 times on tour and is playing against all 25-year-olds, and we've got 3 kids and traveled and can't move our bodies, and they're out there beating the hell out of us every week.
Yep.
But we can't play anywhere else for 10 years, but people still want to watch us. Where do you go, and where does that product?
Well, that's exactly right,
showcase?
and that's what the live should be. That's right. Where if you've earned your keep as a professional, that should be your reward. You should go. Right. You should go get to make a bunch of money playing match play between 35 and 50.
Yeah. From what I understand, I've never had a conversation with Yasser, but he loves team golf, so you could even incorporate team match play, just like a Ryder Cup or
exactly
Cup, into that, or use their model and just I think their final event is match play of some sort, where the 4 guys on the team they make 1 2-man team, and then the other 2 play individual. So you could do that. I think it's a great idea, Porter.
Anyways, yeah, you got to incorporate some match play. The other thing is, of course, so much of sports now is about gambling, and I've got grave concerns about that. I mean, kids, you want to talk about people who are going to have fucked up lives. Imagine if you had sports betting on your phone from the time you were 14 years old. There's no way, kid.
It's just like social media. My children, I'm full-blown panic that my child can communicate via some form of disappearing text message instantly.
Yeah. Anyways, gambling is gonna become a huge problem for young men in the country. So I just don't want you to think I'm a fan of it, because I'm not. I think it's very, very dangerous to have that kind of adrenaline and that kind of addictive thing at your fingertips at a young age. But sorry, go ahead.
What we're seeing on the gambling front, Porter, is you can gamble on instantly while you're in the crowd whether I'm going to make this putt or not. Yeah. And we're actually having interactions at tour events where people are yelling in your backswing or backstroke because they put $5 on it for you to miss, and they think they can affect you to win $5, which it's going to be a problem over time.
Yeah, that's really, really bad, of course, for all kinds of reasons, but also just, as you know, I remember when you were playing here one time, you had some interactions with a fan that was kind of funny. Yeah, I mean, we don't need any more reasons to let boorish behavior flourish. But what I wanted to say about gambling and the Live Tour and the match play aspects is you just think about the amount of business you could generate by being able to generate gambling interest on particular match play matches. Back in the day where Brooks was having the rivalry with Bryson, if you had a match play, weekend where they were going to face each other, the amount of attention that would garner to golf would be very, very large, because you'd be able to make these kind of matchups happen several times a season instead of only once by chance because they happen to be in the final pairing of a major.
Right.
So I think that'd be really, really great for the game and would drive a lot of revenue through the gambling.
Yeah, I've got a few things to ask you, Kiz, too, if you don't mind. I've never had a chance to meet you. I am the best golfer at Market-Wise, by the way.
For sure.
By far. So I'd love to get out and play with you and have you drum me, but that'd be a good time. So what I think the PGA Tour is doing right now, and I'd like to get your take on it, too, they recently had a qualifier for a lot of the YouTube golfers that were scratch. and they invited some pros, and George Bryan got into a playoff essentially, and then they awarded him a spot. Right. I think YouTube golf is phenomenal. It's blowing up. It's got the younger audience. It's interesting. Do you think that's a good move for the PGA Tour to really adopt the YouTubers?
Well, I think it goes back to what Porter and I were talking about with gambling and social media. The world right now, we can have instant gratification at any time in our pockets or in our look at a computer, and you can find out any answer at any time, and you can get whatever you want to entertain you instantly. And YouTube provides that, right? I can go on there and do good or foreplay or whoever I want to watch, the two kids I play with from Wilson Golf, and they're entertaining, right? They have a mass following of people that sit in their basement and watch stuff on computers or even at work. And I think to bring that audience onto our side and to captivate that audience and bring them onto the PGA Tour as entertainers is a huge plus. So anytime we can bring audience, I think it's huge. I think one part that the tour needs to understand is the ratings part. They have such a huge media deal with these big networks, but our ratings are not going to be great when you have guys that watch everything on YouTube, right? Because they're not counted in that ratings. So we're going to have to figure out a way where people can go on our app and watch this stuff so instantly. Or, if you're watching the Masters, and everybody loves the Masters app, right? Mm-hmm. And you can watch every shot all day long. You click on any player, see exactly what they did on every hole. But that doesn't count towards the ratings, right? Because they didn't turn on CBS. So I think you got to figure out a way to get that audience and to show our biggest media partners that they're all watching us. I don't know the answer to that. I'm not smart enough. But we have to bring them in. We have to get them. We want all these YouTube golfers to be a part of the PGA Tour. We want them to qualify and play and see if their games hold up to the best players in the world. We want their audience too. And we want to show CBS, NBC, Golf Channel that all these people are watching. They're just not watching on your channel. So let's figure out a way to make that all happen together.
Yeah, I think that's big. Yeah, you got Ben Kruper as part of your guy.
Yeah,
the pause king.
I couldn't think of his name when I was on my rant.
That guy can play.
I just love the way that Kisner says computer. It's like the way my grandfather used to. Yeah. What are you doing over there on that computer?
And then, Kiz, I got one other thing too that I really, really enjoyed, and I love having you out there, and the fans love it. I look at all the comments, and I loved what you guys did at the Players, where you had the booth outside on the 17th. So you've got that real interaction, and I think that's really drawing people in, and I think that's the right move. I think that's something maybe before LIV they wouldn't have considered doing, but because of LIV, I think it is going to create more of a kind of a pressure environment for, and I know you guys have a new board of directors as well, to be able to do things to interact more with the crowd. And you're the perfect person, and so is Smiley, to do that. Are you enjoying those? Do you like to get out there right on near the tee box?
See, I enjoy that more than the booth, to be honest with you, because I feel like I'm a part of the tournament. I feel the energy. I struggle in the booth because, like I said, it's a Zen yoga studio. It's so quiet that I don't feel the energy. So I struggle to showcase excitement in my voice. I don't really project my voice in there because I feel like I'm supposed to be quiet. Everything's quiet. When I finished the Players, Mike Tirico was like, hey, you're doing great. You just got to talk to the guy in the back of the room, not to the guy right here. And I'm like, it's brutal on me. I feel like if I yell, y'all are all going to pull your headsets off and go, what the heck? And when I'm out there on 16 at the Phoenix Open or 17 at the Players, I can yell all day because I hear the energy. I feel the crowd. But the other part is we have some great personalities on tour, and I think you see that when I'm just lucky enough that a lot of players I talk to and friends with, they want to come by and mess with me when I'm doing that. So you see the personalities. You see Mark Hubbard throw a 40-yard spiral up into the stands of a football I throw him. You see I can't even remember. Somebody came and poured water down Smiley Kaufman's shirt while we're on 17 at Sawgrass. Those are the things that people want to see. They don't want to see the same old smirk on everybody's face, grinding on a 12-footer. They want us to be human, and they want to see that, we have fun and can mess around a little bit too. I don't think you can do it on Sunday, coming down the stretch, but Friday afternoon's a perfect time to be out there, or even Saturday. I tried to tell them Saturday's probably better than Friday because guys are trying to grind and make the cut. But I think we need to showcase that more often.
I agree. Nobody wants to watch zombie golf. There are some players who I'm not going to name. Watching them play golf is painful. It's just it's not any fun. So we got to get rid of that. We have got to get rid of the shotgun start on Live. The reason why Live is completely unwatchable is because you have no idea where anybody is in the standings because you don't know where they are in relation to the toughest holes. It's just terrible, right?
Yeah.
I mean, one of the reasons why the Players' Championship is so good is because the last 3 holes are so entertaining. And, obviously you understand that. You understand a lot more about golf and entertainment than I do. But that, to me, that's just such an obvious flaw. And I've been dying to ask you the same question that I'm sure everyone else has asked you for the last, 2 weeks. How hard was the bunker shot that Bryson hit, really?
It's impossible. But you know what? The only thing I think he had a huge advantage on was his clubs obviously have less loft and they're longer. So he's not having to use as much energy on high lofting. So, like, if I got in that bunker and I was trying to hit behind it like he did, an explosion shot, and fly at 40 yards, I'm probably having to use an 8-iron and open it up slightly, aim way left because it's going to produce all this side spin, where he probably had a pitching wedge or a sand wedge because of the length of his club, the amount of loft on it, plus he's stronger and hits it farther than I do. So that was the only advantage he had. But to hit with those greens, to hit the contact perfectly and fly it, because if he flies it short, it obviously isn't going to run up there. And if he catches it thin, it's in the clubhouse. So to make the contact perfect, I thought it was incredible. I was not actually watching. I was out on the lake, but when I got done, all my phone was blowing up. And I was fascinated. To hit that shot basically in the leather is like I could give him a whole bucket and may not hit one closer than that.
Yeah, it was really incredible under pressure shot.
Yeah, so Kiz, what does your schedule look like for the rest of the year? How many events are you trying to play versus the broadcast booth? And is that one of those things where you get kind of called up out of the bullpen for the broadcast booth, or are you actually scheduled for some things? How's that working?
Well, they asked me to do the U.S. Open, but I'd already planned a trip that week, so I had to change that. But I plan to play next week in the John Deere. Hopefully get into the Scottish Open, which is the week after John Deere, and play there, and then I'll have a week off. So I'm going to play all the way to the playoffs. Obviously, I haven't played great this year, so unless something changes, I won't be in the playoffs. So they've asked me to talk to them about doing the playoffs in the broadcast booth. We haven't agreed to do it yet, but we'll see. We're supposed to talk this week at some point, so if they
you got to stop taking trips when they want you in the booth, because that we want to see you.
Yeah, come on, the U.S. Open. The U.S. Open one was maybe one we really wanted.
Don't blame me. Blame NBC. They should have called me earlier. I was making my own schedule.
I like that.
And also, by the way, this is the hot chick rule.
That's right.
If you're the hot chick, they'll chase you.
You got to make them chase.
Right? So because he said no, Kiz is next time they're definitely going to be like, we got to get Kiz. Let's give him some notice because he's the hot chick we can't get.
Hey,
all right,
I
know.
Porter, you think if they would have offered me a bunch of money, you think I would have canceled my trip?
Yes, I think that you would have.
Okay, so it's on their end, not mine. End.
There's a reason why Kiz is friends with me. It's because he wears my name on his shirt. Listen, I know you got to go and you got to play golf, and we got to go sell some newsletters. But I got one last question for you, and it revolves around hunting. You got any particular hunting plans for this fall? You got anything new or cool you're doing?
So I have a elk hunting trip with my bow and arrow planned in September in Colorado. And then Jim Furyk called me and asked me to be an assistant captain on the President's Cup team. And I agreed immediately because I was fired up, right? And then after I got off the phone with him, I pulled up the calendar. I'm like, when is the President's Cup? And it's like the week I'm supposed to go to Colorado on Friday, and then Monday is the President's Cup. So I'm going to have to fly to Colorado, get my work done on the elk Saturday or Sunday, and then haul ass to Montreal to go be an assistant captain, which is I'm never going to miss being an assistant captain over an elk, because that's the highlight of my career is to represent our country and to go be a part of a team. That's my two favorite things I do in this sport. So hopefully a big giant elk walks out Saturday morning right when I get there. I harvest him, get all his meat, fly back to Montreal, and we go dust the International's ass in the President's Cup.
That sounds great. That. If you get a good one, I hope you'll send me a picture.
Absolutely.
All right, man. Great to see you, and good luck at the Rocket Mortgage, and we'll be watching.
Hey, thanks for having me. I had a great time.
All right. See you.
See you, buddy.
Porter, he always delivers, man.
He's great.
He's salt of the earth.
He's great. He's everybody's best friend in golf world.
He is. And one thing that I think about when you kept saying, what is it that everybody loves Kisner, and I think it's just pure authenticity.
Exactly. He's very humble, and he's a very gritty player. And he didn't get where he got in the golf world because of unbelievable natural talents.
He's 5'10". He's not like a 6'5", 6'4" Oberg that hammers the ball.
But you cannot beat him.
No, you can't.
He grinds it out.
He grinds it out, and he grinds you down. And one thing we didn't talk about, but what's his favorite saying?
Ain't no hobby.
This ain't no hobby.
Yep.
And he would always say that whenever they got him in the conferences, press conferences, because they would ask him things, and he's like, guys, this ain't no hobby. This is my work. I get out here and I grind. So that was fantastic hearing from him.
He also, I forgot to ask him about this. God dog it. He also just does stuff that no one else in the world would do. So he's warming up for the British Open, and he's wearing a hat that says 1776. Yeah, he's because as you saw, he brings the heat.
Yeah, as you saw at the very end, he's going to be a captain's assistant on the President's Cup, and for him, like that's the thing. America and teammates, that's what he is. So he had no fear going over there with the 1776 hat. I love it. Yeah, he is a true national treasure. All right, Porter, we'll do a couple more emails, and then we'll get out of here. So once again, if you want to write to us, go to podcast feedback at porterandcompanyresearch.com.
Podcast feedback at porterandcompany.com.
Companyresearch.com.
Oh, my God. At Porter and Company. Is that A&D?
A&D.
So at porterandcompanyresearch.com.
That's it.
And it's podcast feedback at porterandcompanyresearch.com. Could we have come up with a longer one?
When I first was marketing director, I went round and round about all this stuff. And for some reason, I never would have thought that any type of Porter and Co. or any of that abbreviated is all taken.
Yeah.
It's so there's a lot of Porters apparently out there and companies that are doing the same, or not the same thing, but they're doing something. Just a couple more. One from Dom. Hello, Brabsy, which of course is my nickname. It's been great to see the return of the Black Label podcast. You might find a way to pressure influence Porter and occasionally sneak some drinks back in, crossing fingers. I look forward to each episode and appreciate what you guys are doing. I could see Porter on the cover of QSIP Aficionado magazine. If we can make that happen someday, love the show, gents. And we have one more, which is from Larry B. Aaron, I've been following Porter for years. I missed a Dirtier podcast, but the interviews are great. Keep up the great work with the Black Label podcast.
Very nice.
So, Porter, that's our show for today. Lots of shout-outs. I always enjoy sitting down with you, but I'm really, really excited about this new podcast that you have coming up with Whitney Tilson, and we'll get this out to everybody.
And hey, everybody, send Brabsy here an email and wish him a happy birthday. The kid, as we used to call him, is now 50 years old.
I know, it's amazing, man. 50. And, man, thank you so much for being one of my best friends, my mentor, someone that I enjoy my time with pretty much more than anybody. And that was the greatest golf trip that I could have ever imagined. We went to Ireland. We played 7 championship courses. We had some Guinnesses. We had some great steaks. We had some great wine.
It was a good time.
And thank you so much, buddy. I love you so much, man.
Happy
I appreciate
birthday.
you. Appreciate it.
Bye, everybody.
See you guys.
Thank you for listening to the Porter and Company Black Label Podcast with your hosts, Porter Stansberry and Aaron Brabham. We'll see you soon.